Hey guys, my name's George and I'm here to teach you today how to create a NFT dark mode style app within Figma and then prototype it so that you can move it around, move these around, you can scroll up and down, and you can take it further if you want to, but this is going to teach you basically just the basics. This is only going to be part one of a several part series as we design more of these screens. All right, so first things first, we're going to create a frame, press F, it's going to be iPhone 13 mini, let's say, this is fine. We're going to give it a background, dark gray for now. And I've got open already the iOS 14 UI toolkit. So I'm going to copy this status bar so we have the time up there. Just bring that and paste it into R1. So now we have the time at the top. Back into the toolkit, I'm going to grab this at the bottom here and rectangle. So copy both of those, bring them back into our app. Okay, just drag those down to the bottom and I'm going to group them together. So we've got status bar at the top, I'm just going to lock that for now. And at the bottom, we've got the home indicator. So home. Okay, so zoom in. We have a stroke on here, so I'm going to remove the stroke. That one's correct. This one has a drop shadow. So get rid of the drop shadow as well. Sorry, the status bar, actually, we're going to unlock it. We're going to unlock the status bar, and we are going to remove the fill. Just turn it off, disable that. I think we are good to go on this. I'm going to get rid of the fill in the home indicator as well. Okay, so now we just have status bar up here and the home indicator at the bottom. All right, next we are going to set up a couple of font styles so that we have a few fonts to work with. I've already got them set up here, but I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to click on text up here and then just start making a few fonts. So we want to have something for titles, and I'm going to use Poppins. I'm going to use Poppins for all of the fonts, just in different weights and sizes. So I'm going to use 18 pixels for the titles. Make sure you've got it selected, 18 pixels for titles, and it's going to be medium. Okay, so go medium. Copy that. What else? Okay, so what I've done here is I've basically set up a set of font styles just so that we can easily reference them and use them. So I've set up, they're all Poppins. So this one is Poppins 18 pixels medium. This one's 14 pixels regular, 14 pixels bold, 10 pixels regular, 10 pixels bold. So for each of these, you want to click on it. You want to go over here to style, add, and for this one, for example, I'll just call it titles and create style. And then do that for each of these: paragraph, paragraph bold, small text bold. And then when it comes to using them, if I wanted to make this text into a title, I would just come here, click on titles, and now it's consistent title text. So undo, I'm going to leave these as they are, set these up, and then we'll move on to the next step. Put these over here for now because we don't need them anymore. All right, now to the fun part. We are going to start creating our home screen. So to start with, basically we want to have a sort of, you want to choose your main dark color background. So for me, I'm going to choose something with a hint of blue. We're going to be sort of this bluish black over here. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Choose whatever color you want. Now we're going to press O and I'm going to create a couple of circles so that we can create this blur effect. So I'm going to hold shift to make it consistent. I'm going to drag a circle here and I'm going to Control D, duplicate that and drag another circle over here, maybe a bit bigger. It's up to you. Okay, group both of these together and we're going to change the color of them to whatever color you want your hue to be. So I'm going to go for like a neon green kind of color, like bluish green, or like this. And now we're going to just rename this group to blur, and we're going to add a blur effect, add layer blur, and we're going to put it about 200. There we go. So now these are nicely blurred, but they're a bit bright still. So turn this down to about 20%. That looks a lot better. You can play around with this. If you just drag the bar from here, you can just see when they start to fade in. Choose what you like. Actually, 16 is nice. Okay, so now we've got a nice blur effect going on in the background. We can start working on our top bar. Let me just remind you what we're looking for. So we can start making this top bar up here. So we've got a profile picture, we've got a balance of Ethereum here, a search bar, and a scan icon. So we come back, and what we want to do is basically we want to keep everything, we're going to use a lot of auto layout in here to keep everything consistent. So we're going to lock this blur background so we don't mess with that anymore. Home indicator, we're going to lock that. Status bar, we're going to lock that. So none of this is going to move anymore. I'm just going to throw in a couple of rulers. So if you press Control R, it will show you your rulers. You can drag down from the top. I'm going to put a ruler here at the bottom of this status bar, and I'm going to put a ruler down here to show us where we should stop. So around. So now I'm going to create our content section, or our main content section. We'll press F, get a frame, and we're going to drag it like this. There. So now I have a frame taking up our whole screen. We're going to put an auto layout on this, and we are going to say we'll start with 16 here, and we'll put 16 padding as well. So now we'll have a 16 pixel gap between each of these things. We're going to start now with our nav bar at the top, or status bar. So we're going to rename this layer content, and we're going to set it as a fixed width and a fixed height for now. So it's not going to change. So now we're going to grab another frame. We're going to put it in here. This is going to be our nav. So we want fill container. And as you can see, the 16 pixel gap is shown on either side. The height we'll set to, we're going to set it to hug contents once we have some contents in there for it to hug. So in our top bar, we've got a left section and a right section. So we need to make those two first. So we'll call this top bar, and then we're going to grab another frame. And inside there, we're going to make left section. And I'll give these a few colors just so we can see what's going on. So we'll put that on white. Left section, we'll fill it in with gray. And duplicate that. And this one's going to be right section. You can't see the right section because it's hidden behind. But if we go onto top bar, we click auto layout, and then we increase spacing between the items. Now we can see we have two sections. So we want these two sections to be horizontal next to each other. Click this button, and then we need to make sure our top bar is filling the container still. So glitch that happened. Make sure that's filling the container, and then we want to change the alignment and padding to space between. So now we have one section on the left and one section on the right. And actually the left section is on the wrong way around. So we're going to rearrange these just so that we don't get confused. Grab our top bar again, and we're going to change it to hug contents. Now we need to start putting things inside these sections. So we're going to add a ellipse. It's going to be our profile picture, and we'll make it 30 pixels, I think. Yeah. And what else do we need in this section? We need an icon for the Ethereum and the balance. So we're going to put in an image in here just so that we have some contrast. So right click. If you don't have this plugin already, you should download it. It's the Unsplash image plugin. Basically, it allows us to access Unsplash without actually leaving this platform here. So I'm going to type in 3D. I'm going to just find something we can put into the avatar. So let's use this shoe for now. So we have an avatar of a shoe. So what else do we need in here? We need our balance, which is going to go here. So we're going to put, say we're quite wealthy. We've got 8.5 Ethereum. And we're going to choose a text style for this. It's going to be, say, small text, bold. All right, so everything is looking pretty out of place here. So we click on our left section, and we're going to add an auto layout to try and clean things up a bit. So go back to alignment. We want it to be centrally aligned this way. It's looking a bit better. Now we're missing the Ethereum icon as well. Let's go to plugins. I've got another plugin here for icons called Iconify. So if we type in Ethereum, grab this one. It's an Ethereum icon. 30 is a bit big. Try 11. And it's going to be white, so we'll import in there. There he is. Close this. So we want this Ethereum icon to be next to our Ethereum balance. And actually, we want the balance to be closer because at the moment, everything is spaced 15 pixels in between. So we want Ethereum balance and the icon to be closer together. So we're going to group them. We'll change this to balance. And when they're inside a group, we can move them separately. Okay. So whatever color we use for your background blur here in the background, we want to use the same color for our balance here. Put a few more decimal places. 1.5210. Okay. If we go to fill, see I used this color before. If you can't see your color, you can unlock the blur section again, click on one of the ellipses, and the color will be here, 1FFBC. And you can actually save this color as well. I've already saved mine as a neon green. Let's change the color of some of these things. We're going to click on our balance, and I want the Ethereum to be green, and I want the numbers to be white. And actually, I also want the Ethereum logo to be green. So make sure we've got the vector selected, neon green. Okay, this left section box does not need a fill, so we'll remove that. This top bar also does not need a fill, so we'll remove that. So now we've got something that's looking a bit nicer. Then we need to add in our icons over here. It's the search icon and the scan icon. So again, we're going to go back into Iconify. We're going to find a search icon. go for this thin style one. 11 is a bit small, so let's say 20. And again, we want it to be white, so import icon. And we also need a scan icon, like this one. This box, we're going to add another auto layout because we don't need it to be that big, but we do want it to be in the middle of this section. So now that we've added an auto layout, this box is shrunk down to just 20 pixels in height. And we want it to be the same height as this box. So we're going to click on it and we're going to make it fill container. Now we want these icons to be in the middle of this box. So we're going to move them down like this. And they're also a bit close together. We don't want it that close, so we'll put them 16 pixels apart. And we will remove the fill on this as well. Now we have a search icon and our scan icon. Another thing we can do is to remove all of this padding. We don't need all these extra paddings here. So we'll just, especially the top and the bottom, so we'll remove the top and bottom padding, call these 0. For these as well, make sure you've got 0 padding around there. The top bar, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. Another thing you can do if you want is if you want to grab your frame, you can just add a few rounded edges to it, just to make it look a bit more like an iPhone. We don't need to see these rulers anymore. We can now start working on our categories. So for categories, you see we have a couple of different things going on here. We've got rounded boxes, a title, it blurs at the bottom, and there's a little drop shadow as well. So we want to be in our content space again, and we're going to drag another frame. And again, we're going to add a little fill for now. Just I find it makes it a bit easier to see what's going on when there's a fill. So our box, we want an auto layout, we want a fill container, and then we're going to create a card within here with our first category. So first, let's rename it to categories, and we're going to add a title in here as well. So put some text. It auto resizes to hug the contents. So we're going to call this categories. So for this, we're going to use title style that we made earlier. Now we want to make sure our blur layer is locked, and we're going to create another frame within here. So frame, we're going to drag it out, do a square. I'm going to do 100 by 100, and we need to make sure that our auto layout is set to the vertical direction, and that categories is beneath the frame we created, so the categories appears on top. Let's grab our frame, add a color to it so that we can see what we're doing. Okay, now our categories box is not hugging contents yet. We click hug contents, there we go. And you can see when we have everything set up with auto layouts, they automatically space themselves out quite nicely. We don't need to mess around too much with the way they're set up, but we're going to set the inner to 8 pixels anyway. I like to work with 8s or multiples of 8. So we've got our first frame here, and this is going to be our first category. Category 1. We're going to add some rounded corners. I think 10 looks pretty good, and we'll throw an image in here straight away just so that we can see what we're working with. So plugins, Unsplash, go 3D again. I like this one. That will do for now. Now it's also renamed the frame to Unsplash, so we're going to rename it back to. And I'm also going to make it a component so that when I duplicate it, the changes that we make on this one will reflect on the other ones. So if I duplicate it now, so let's put 4 for now. So we've got 4 duplicates here, and we need to put them into their own frame. We'll call this categories sub. Now that it's its own frame, we can set an auto layout for this to go horizontally instead of vertically. So add our auto layout horizontally. There we go. By the end of this tutorial, you should be a master in auto layouts. Now, my categories box for some reason has clip content on, which we don't need because we want to see this go off the side. We don't need it to clip at the edge there. If yours is the same, you can just turn it off. Now, we'll go back to our main component. If you don't know which one is the main one, it's this dark purple one rather than the empty one. So in our main component, we want to add now a title section at the bottom. So if we grab another frame and we drag it out within here, and we add a fill to it, as you can see, we have straight corners here where we actually want rounded corners as well, but only at the bottom. So if we click on this frame and we click on our rounded corners, if I put 10 here, it's going to change all of them to rounded corners, which you might want, but this is not what we're going for. So if I go back here, we can individually change which corners we don't want to be rounded, just those two. So now we have a box here for our title, and we don't actually want a color here. what we want is we need to have some fill, but we're going to put 1% white fill, and we're going to add an effect of a blur, a background blur. Now you can mess with the height of this if you want, depending on how much of the image you want to blur. But I'm going to leave it, say, 25 pixels, and I'm also going to add a layer blur so that we don't have such a sharp edge here at the top. So not drop shadow, layer blur. Yeah. So now we don't have any sharp edges anywhere, but we're leaking out of the side. So if we click on make sure our category is set to clip content, that gets rid of that leak. So now we've got an area for our text to go here. Call this text area. Now we have to add some text into the area. Call it art. Make sure that we are above the text area rather. If you want to center something horizontally, Alt and H. That is a bit big. We don't want it to be titles. So let's try paragraph bold. Yep. Fill white. Center him horizontally again and bring him down. Okay, I quite like that. Actually, we'll call it 3D art. Okay, so we want our text to always be centered. So we're going to make it full width, and then we're just going to center the text. Okay. And as you can see, all of the changes we've made here have been reflected on all the other ones as well. So what else do we want to do here? We want to, well, first, we don't need this gray box around categories anymore, so we'll remove that. And for each category, I think it would be nice to have a bit of a drop shadow as well. So go down to Effects, add a little drop shadow. You can mess with this if you want, but I actually quite like it the way it is. Now all we have to do is change the images and the text on these other categories. So select one of these again, make sure we have the category selected. Plugins, Unsplash. If you want to add your own image, if you just click on the category, go to the fill, choose image, and you can select from your own library of images what you want to add. So we'll leave that one there. So we'll rename these for... Now that I'm looking at it, this text is actually a little bit big. So if we've set up all of our styles correctly and our component correctly, we go back in, we can change this here. We'll use small text bold instead. So we've got a bit more room. So these are our different categories, and again, they've been renamed incorrectly. We'll call this Cat 2, Cat 3. Okay. Another thing I want to do here is actually add a white border around, like just a small white border around the edge. So if we go to our category again, we go to stroke, it's black, we want a white inside border, and we only want it to be about 20%. Yeah, maybe less actually, 10%. That's it. Just a little highlight around the edge. So now we can move on to our next section, which is the trending NFT section. And fortunately, we can take a lot of what we already used here to create that section. So if we click on this, Control D, duplicate, now we can just start renaming things to be, what we need them to be. So it's now trending NFTs, trending sub, trending NFTs. So most of this we're not going to need. We've got the title just here. Let's delete these other three. We'll just work from this one here. So just to show you again what we're going for, we've got one large card here and then smaller cards off to the side. And we need these to be basically the exact, we need this one to be double the size of these two plus the space in between. But we don't want to have to mess around with calculating all of that. So we're going to set an auto height on it. So if I have this category for now, I'm going to duplicate this category and I'm going to change the direction of this trending sub to vertical. So this is going to be the height that we want our large card to be. So we'll rename this to small cards. We'll copy it, and this one is going to be large card. Now we have to group these both together in another frame. So Control Alt G, and this is going to be all cards. So all cards needs an auto layout going horizontally. A large card is going to go on the left, so make sure it's in the right place, and we only need one card inside of there. Okay, let's actually detach the instance because we don't want changes on this one to affect this new large card, or these two to be honest either. So we're going to detach this from an instance, and now we're going to play around with the sizing. So at the moment we have a fixed height, but we don't want it to be a fixed height. We need it to fill the container, but our container is only the same size as the card was. So we need to grab its parent, and we also need to set that to fill container. And the width is a bit thin here, so I'm thinking to drag it out, say to around here. And we need to set the category 1 again to fill container. There we are. So now we have one large card and two smaller cards, which we're going to extend off the screen as well. So let's rename this to trend 1, trending large. And we're going to give it a new image. Now you can also use I've also got the Pexels plugin as well. It's another free image library. They also got some quite cool 3D illustrations as well. This one, oh, not bad. Want something with a bit more texture going on so we can see the blur effect that we're going to do. Doesn't really work as an NFT. Well, maybe it could. Well, let's go for this one. So this is going to be our large trending NFT. Okay, so what do we need? What information do we need on this large card? Well, we need the name of the collection. We're going to put a little verified icon here. We have the name of the NFT, the price, 8.5 is quite expensive, and how many likes on the NFT. So let's go back here and let's start by grabbing this section. So we're going to make this. We'll group these two together for now, the title and the text area, and we'll stretch it out and drag it down to the bottom. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Say we want to take up about 30% of the image. And as you can see, it keeps all of the layer styles and effects that we had before. But we don't want this text in the middle anymore. So drag this up as well. Drag this out to the bottom. Okay, this part is currently a group, but we actually want it to be an auto layout. And this title, we'll actually delete the title for now. Sorry. And this title, we don't want it to be centered. So we need to give it its own width again as well. So that we don't get confused, let's take a look at this. So this text area is actually our background blur. We'll rename this to background blur. And this title, we're going to do a few more things than just a title. So Control-Alt-G, we're going to group it into a frame. And we're going to turn this into the title of the NFT. So we'll call it NFT Club 0102. And we're going to set the alignment back to the left. Now, as you can see, we don't want it to be hitting this left edge. So we'll grab the frame, add an auto layout. We'll rename the frame to titles. We're going to duplicate this because we also need the name of the collection. So make sure that the auto layout is going downwards. And we're going to rename this one to the NFT Club. That's going to be the name of the collection. We'll change this text to just small text instead of small text bold. Make sure we've got it selected. Change that to small text bold. And we've got a bit too much space going on here, so we'll change that to 0. I don't want the spacing to be that big. Now, we still haven't sorted out the spacing issue. We don't want it still close to the edge or to the top of this blur. So we're going to grab the titles and we're going to add a bit of a padding. So let's say 6 pixel padding, but we also want this to be full width. So we'll just drag that out here and drag it out to the bottom here. Okay, that looks a bit better. Now we've got to add our verified icon as well. So if we first find this title, we're going to add this into its own group or frame rather. We'll call it collection. Open them up, auto layout right, let's say 4 pixels spacing. And now we need to add in the icon. So we'll type in verified and this one looks good. Import the icon. Now it's a bit big, so shift, drag, that's better. We'll drag this over here to the other side and we'll make sure the collection is centered vertically. There you go, that looks pretty good to me. If you wanted to make it blue, just select the icon itself and we can make it blue here. Nice verified blue color. But we're missing the white in between, so we can just add a little box behind it that's white. There we go. So NFT Club is now verified. Now we need to give this NFT a price. So we're going to have basically, if I go back here, this section at the top and then this section at the bottom of this inner box. So everything we've got already, this titles, they're going to be in the top section. So the name, the collection, this is all going to be in the top section. So we can rename this. We don't need to rename it. We'll group these two together, call them top section, and then duplicate. Now we have a bottom section as well. And if yours didn't go underneath, make sure that your titles frame is set to auto layout and down. Anyway, we need to rename this to bottom section, and we're going to need one of these. So let's get rid of this collection. Bottom section, drag it down. So we actually want our bottom section to be stuck to the bottom. So we need to change this titles frame from packed to space between. So now it's an even spacing from the bottom. Now we need to add how much it's going to cost, and we've already made this up here, so we can reuse this element. So if we copy this, come down here, and paste it into the bottom section, and then we'll delete what was there before, which is this NFT club. Now we have what looks like a price. I'm going to take away the color of this Ethereum logo. We're going to call it just white, and in fact, it's all going to be white. And 8.5 is a bit steep, so I'll change it to 0.5111. Now we also need to show how many likes it's got. So this bottom section needs to contain another element. So we're going to increase the width, set it to fill container, and this, we have balance on the left. If we duplicate balance, we set the auto layout to horizontal and the height to HUD contents. For some reason we keep getting this issue with the fill container. We also need to make sure that we're set to space between again. So now this is stuck to the right. It's not called balance, this is going to be called likes. We need a number of likes, which is going to be our text. So we'll change it to 366 likes. And now we don't need Ethereum logo anymore, but we do need a heart. So plugins, iconify, let's grab heart. This one will do, nice and red. Import icon. For some reason it's imported up here. I'm going to Control X, let's cut that, come into our likes, and then Control V to paste it. Now set an auto layout on the likes, horizontal, maybe 4 pixels separation. Now the heart is actually way too big, so hold Shift and make it a bit smaller. Yes. I'm also going to put it on the left, so we just rearrange the order here to put it on the left. Go into our likes, set it to middle again. There we go. So now it's more evened out. So that looks pretty good for a trending NFT section to me. And of course you can play around with this blur, change it as much as you want. You can change the color of it as well. But that looks pretty nice to me. Now with these smaller trending NFTs, we're not going to have as much room as we do on this big one to put all this information. So I think I'm just going to have the name of the NFT, and we don't need to change much in here for that. We're just going to basically take this and align it to the left instead of the middle. So we're going to grab both of these, detach them from the instance, and I'm going to rename this one to trending small one. We're going to grab the text here and send it to the left, but obviously it's too far left. So we are going to add, so we can just drag this in a bit from both sides. Now it's a name, and we'll call it trending number 1, just because it's easier to come up with names. Now if we grab trending small 1, we need to turn it into a component. Now we can delete this old one and duplicate trending small 1 again. You can see because of the way we've designed this, it will automatically match the height of whatever I put on this side of the frame. So if I was to add another one, it gets even taller. But at the moment we only want the 2. We'll change the images on these. Back into pixels. Let's type in NFT. See what comes up. Nothing good. Type in 3D. So that one there. Trending 2. We'll get a bit more creative. Put this one. No, this one. Great. Maybe trending 2. Now we also want to copy this small card section because we want another one that we can scroll into. So for this image, pick a few more images. This one, go back into Unsplash. Great, so now we have our trending NFTs section. I'm just closing up all these categories here to keep it a bit more neat. Okay, now we're getting to a slightly easier part. We're going to put hot collections here. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this again and we're going to duplicate. We're going to change the title to hot collections. And we're going to rename this section to hot collections. And basically everything inside we don't need. This as well, hot collections, title. Now here we basically just want a circle with 2 lines of text next to it. So press O, grab a circle, and start drawing one out. I think 50 is fine. 50. And we're going to add some text in here. So grab text and we'll call it angry avatars. This doesn't need to be title text, so we'll change it to paragraph, maybe paragraph bold, and we'll duplicate it. And this is going to be by collection creator. We'll change this to small text. Great. So we'll group these two bits of text together. Rather, we'll put them in a frame. Auto layout, 0 spacing, 4 pixel spacing. So that's a frame, and we want this to be next to the ellipse. So we'll call this frame text, and we'll put these two in a frame as well. We'll call this a module. It's not a module. We'll call this collection 1, and auto layout horizontal. We want this to be centered, and then we're going to add an image here. So select the ellipse, plugins, Unsplash. So I found an image to go here. I'm just going to use this picture of a marble statue. We also want to grab this collection, and we want to add a 16 pixel padding on the left hand side. Okay. So now we're going to duplicate this a couple of times, and basically we're just going to rename these and choose different images that we want in here. So head back into Unsplash and I'll meet you at the end. So I've just gone ahead and put these collective shapes, planets, but you can put whatever you want here. And that's about it for hot collections. Now all that's left is to add the bottom nav bar, and we'll get right to that now. So before we get started on the bottom nav, we're going to lock this content layer so it doesn't interfere with what we're doing. Close that. I'm just going to close this as well. So content layer is locked, and now we need to add a frame. So I'm going to drag out a frame here. I'm going to make it 85 pixels high and make sure it's stuck to the bottom. Okay, so that's at the bottom. Now we need to add a blur. So we're going to call this bottom nav, and I'm going to add a rectangle inside here, same height, 85 pixels, and I'm going to add the effect background blur, and we're going to change the color to, again, some sort of bluey black, but we don't need this much transparency. You can mess around and choose whatever transparency you like. I'm going to go for like something like this maybe. The blur we're going to set to 30 pixels. It's a bit dark actually, so I'm going to just do something more like this. Yeah. That works for me. Now, as you can see, our status bar, our home bar has been hidden behind it, so we need to make sure that's on top. Home indicator is on top, and we also want this status bar to be on top as well. That's just for the prototype later on. So within here, we need to add our 5 icons, which is home, explore, add NFT, notifications, and profile. So we're going to grab these from an icon set because we want them to be similar to each other. And for that, I'm going to use feather icons, and we're just going to choose home. We want explore or navigation. We also want plus symbol, and as you can see, they're just piling on top of each other. We'll fix that in a second. Alert, we want notification bell, and then we want a user. Okay. So if I grab all these icons now, first I'm going to change them to white. Then I'm going to select them again, and I'm going to add them into a frame, and I'm going to add an auto layout, and we want this to be horizontal. And then I'm going to rename this frame to nav icons, and I'm going to drag it into our bottom bar. Now, this blur rectangle also needs to go within the bottom bar and below the nav icons. There we go. So these guys are looking a bit cramped. So I'm going to increase the width to the full width of the screen, and I'm going to change this to space between, and I'm going to add a 32 pixel padding to either side. And I'm going to drag the height up here and bring the height, the bottom part down here. And then we go back to here to alignment and padding, and we're going to make sure it's in the middle. There we go. Now we have a nav bar with our icons inside. We also need an indicator to show that we're on the correct screen. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is to just change the color of the icon, change it to a neon green color, not bad. Instead, I'm going to add a little circle that's going to be an indicator for us. So if I press O, I'm going to create a little circle. It's going to be 4 by 4 pixels, and he's going to take on neon green color. Now, if I was to drag the circle, I want it to be underneath our home icon here. If I was to drag it in, it gets thrown in here with the auto layout, but we don't want to do that. So instead, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to hold the space bar. I'm going to hold the space bar, and then I can put him here, exactly where I want him, without interfering with the auto layout. But he's also not in the correct place. We need to have him in the bottom nav, so we're going to just drag him into the bottom nav. There he is. If we dragged him into the nav icons section, he would have joined the auto layout again. So we can't do that. We're going to keep him in the bottom nav. Close that up, and we're good to go.
One last adjustment that I want to make here is these categories, they have a little space on the left, so we're just going to remove this 10 pixel space. I don't know why it's auto added these spacings in, so we're just going to remove the spacings here. Set the padding to 0. There we go. And on this one as well. There we go. So we just want to remove, we don't need this extra space, but you can set it to whatever you want. This is our app, and it looks great, I think. So now all that's left to do is to prototype it. So if we want to get it looking like this with all of these animations, we just need to make a quick prototype. So to do that, we select it, head to the prototype tab, and we need to add some scrolling. So if I click on these, we need to unlock it first. Unlock our content. Click here. Now we don't want to select this whole category. All we want to do is select these images and make sure they're set to horizontal scrolling. And then here as well, trending NFTs, select the section that has the images in, set it to horizontal scrolling. To make the whole thing scroll, we have to make sure our content is set to vertical scrolling. Now, if we preview as a prototype, now we can see that we can click here, drag through, we can drag through these images, we can scroll up and down, and I think the app looks great. So that's it for this lesson. This is part 1 of creating a dark mode NFT app tutorial. I will be making more parts where I create other pages. So if you're interested in seeing what the next parts are going to look like and getting some more tips on Figma and some more tutorials on how to design things, then please subscribe to the page, give the video a like, leave me a comment to say if you're going to try it or what you think of it or if there's any improvements I could make. And yeah, please let me know, and I will see you in the next video.